Hello and welcome to GatherVerse News Unscripted. I'm Lisa Bernard and I'll be your host on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Today we are thrilled to welcome Sandy Carter to the show. Sandy is the Chief Operating Officer of Unstoppable Domains, and she will also help us become more fluent in the lingo of Web3. Today's show is brought to you by How Women Lead. How Women Lead is working to redefine female leadership by elevating women onto corporate boards, making venture capital investing accessible through How Women Invest, and supporting social impact philanthropy through How Women Give. Sandy Carter joins me now. Sandy is the Chief Operating Officer and the Head of Business Development for Unstoppable Domains. It's a platform for user-owned digital identity. And she also is the founder of Unstoppable Women of Web3. Thank you so much for joining us, Sandy.
Well, I am really excited to be here, Lisa. This will be fun.
It will be. Thank you. I want to talk about both of those organizations in a moment. But first, we were hoping you could give us a little class on intro to Web3. And I'm just going to start right out and ask you, what is Web3?
Yeah, so there are a lot of definitions about Web3, but let me start with the easiest one. So in a sentence, Web3 is an open movement to broadly decentralize the internet, allowing for ownership of data and identity. And that's why I have the slide up on the screen, because it really illustrates the difference in ownership of data and identity. So in the Web 2 world, digital identity is owned by a platform. So today you log into any platform like Google or TikTok or Twitter with a username and password, which is your digital identity. Any of that information now or data that's collected about you is owned by the platform, not by you. And in fact, Google and Facebook just were in an article recently that said they sold our data, Lisa, for $100 billion. The interesting thing here is in Web 2, you do have convenience of logging in through that username and password, but the data and the identity is owned by the platform. So now if we switch over to Web3, Web3 now switches the ownership model. The ownership now is owned by us. So Lisa, you own your data and your ID. I own my data and ID, which means that I get to decide who gets my data, when they get it, how long they get it for, and what part of my data they get. You know, here at Unstoppable Domains, we do believe that ownership of data is a human right. It's essential because it makes up our digital presence. It's who we are. And that's why it's so important, I think, in this whole new world that's being created out there.
And how do we ensure that that is kept safe?
Yeah, so it's a great question. You know, if you think about that data today in the Web3 world, that data is stored on something called the blockchain. The blockchain is simply a decentralized way, meaning no one person has the data, so it's decentralized, of storing the information in a set of blocks so that it's divided amongst a set of different entities. That keeps that data secure and it exists on chain. So, you know, Lisa, you and I probably grew up with our parents saying, be careful what you put on Facebook. What parents today should be saying is be careful what you put on the blockchain, because it is there, it is immutable, and it is secure. So it's going to be there for a long time.
Okay, well, thank you. And so let's pivot and please tell us, Sandy, what is the metaverse?
Yeah, so the metaverse, typically the metaverse is now built on top of Web3. So it inherits those elements of decentralization and ownership of data, typically. So I'm just saying typically, there are metaverses in the Web 2 world. But metaverse then brings on to Web3 immersive experiences so that you and I can have an avatar, which is a representation of us, a digital identity that we now can use in a digital world, which could be driven by AR, VR, et cetera. Doesn't have to be though. And you can experience working and living and playing and getting together. Just yesterday, Lisa, I had a virtual coffee in the metaverse with one of my partners, for example. Again, being represented by an avatar where I got to interact almost like it was real life in a cafe having coffee.
And so the distinction between metaverse and if we refer to AR, VR, XR is that interaction that you're describing. And the other experiences, for example, could be you're riding a roller coaster in VR, correct? You are visiting the pyramids in Egypt. Explain, if you would, the difference between AR, VR, and XR.
Yeah. So if you have VR, you're talking about virtual reality, which means that everything around you is virtual. So nothing is real. It's recreated in a digital world. If you're doing AR, it's augmented reality. So you could have like a picture in my home, like this picture here could be virtual, but we're obviously in real life. And so that would be augmented reality, because what that enables you to do is to blend both together. Now, there are a lot of new technologies out there. And if you think about XR really encapsulates augmented reality, virtual reality, and basically everything in between. So it's really a catch-all phrase for everything that we've been talking about. Now, I think the real future here of the metaverse will be perhaps not with hardware, not with glasses, but the ability for you to transport into a new world as you're sitting in your chair without any additional hardware. It would make it much more inclusive. And we saw a glimpse of that at the TED Talks in Vancouver, where we had a couple of companies coming out of stealth to show how that might be represented in the future.
And how so? I'm intrigued because I thought that clunky headset will evolve to glasses, which will make it much easier. But you're saying not even glasses. How would that work?
Maybe not even glasses. So they showed a contact lens that you might put in your eye,
Mm.
and that contact lens in one eye would actually bring in a kind of an augmented reality view. At TED Talk in Vancouver, we also saw like images coming at you being present on your hand. So
Hmm.
it was like a visualization on your hand caused from maybe a small element of IoT or Internet of Things, that you would just see things on your hand that might be virtual and you could flip through them. So again, I'm not, again, right now, I think the hardware is important, but many of the most used metaverses today require no hardware. And that's why they have so many people in them and inhabiting them, because they don't require hardware. And if you think, we're really lucky, Lisa, because we're in the US, a lot of people around the world can't afford another piece of hardware. And so being able to enter a metaverse, like let's say Upland, for example, that doesn't require all the hardware is, I think, a really powerful point, which is why I think we saw coming out of stealth mode at TED all of this new technology, which brings more clarity like a piece of hardware glasses do, but without that hardware device. It's a fascinating time to live today, to see the impacts of all this new tech and what will bring, especially when you combine it with AI. Now you're like over the top, right?
That's right. But let me ask you this. For people who are completely overwhelmed by all of this, who are not gamers, who don't own crypto, who aren't interested in getting an NFT, who aren't interested in entering a virtual world, what would you say to them? Is it important, so that they don't get left behind, that they take the time to learn a little bit? Um, can we just dismiss this and be okay? I mean, I think AI is everywhere already, and that's something everybody will certainly have in their lives. But what about the people who are resistant to this, who say it's too difficult for me to even understand? How would you tell them to start to learn about it? And is it important for them to start to learn about it?
I think it really is important that they have an understanding of what it is. I don't think they need to go into the depth of the detail, but I do think it's important. And I would also say, Lisa, I think it's really important for companies building in the space to make it easier. So, for example, NFT, non-fungible token. Like, why did we ever come up with that term? All it is a digital collectible. And we're seeing a lot of lessons come out of Web2 companies like Reddit, who actually just did a huge NFT drop, but didn't call it an NFT, called it a collectible, and had so many people experimenting with Web3 without even knowing that they were in Web3. Starbucks is another great example with Odyssey. They're transforming their loyalty program. You don't even need to know what's behind the scenes, but blockchain and Web3 is behind the scenes of their new loyalty program. And that loyalty program is more powerful because now they can validate whether you actually got that, latte or what you actually put on the latte, and they can more easily interact with you. So I think a brief understanding is important because then you understand a little bit about it. However, it's going to become over time, as easy as a mobile phone. Like, you don't know how a mobile phone works, but you use it. You don't really understand how the internet works, but you use it. This is the next generation of that immersive internet. And I think pretty soon we won't even be talking about the tech. We'll just be talking about the experience.
Fascinating. Thank you for that distinction. I think that is so important. Let's switch to talking about the amazing organization you founded called Unstoppable Women of Web3. We on this show really like to profile people who are considering the human consequences of technology. And one of the things we focus on is equality in Web3. You are absolutely a tech pioneer, having worked at IBM and Amazon in their early stages, and clearly a role model. Tell me how you're helping women and even young girls. I know you're helping as well.
Yeah, well, because I do really believe what I just said, that I think people need to understand what this new world looks like and where it's going. I wanted to make sure that women and diverse groups also had a leg up in that space. And so I founded Unstoppable Women of Web3. We've added the metaverse and AI to it because we've got so many requests coming in now. We founded the group with the sole mission of education. We wanted to provide easy to use, free education to those groups. So we set up the group. We have now 210 companies supporting the group, and all of them help to provide education in some form or fashion. So, for example, I was just meeting with Google Cloud yesterday, who's part of the group. They're going to do some sessions on why Web3 matters and what are use cases so that you can get a better grasp of it. For example, we have other partners like Miss O'Cool Girls who did a whole stream of education for young girls, which just gives me goosebumps all over. And so that education mission is really strong, and all these companies are helping us with that. Now, I would also say a couple other areas we decided to focus on were publicizing the most inspirational women of Web3 in the metaverse and the most inspirational girls, 25 of girls between 6 and 17, which is amazing that they know what a smart contract is and what blockchain is. And we did that because I really believe that if you can see it, you can be it. To me, that's really important. And then some other things that we're working on are speakers bureaus, so we can get more women out there representing. So thank you for your support and the sponsor support too. Women Who Lead is really an excellent organization. So that's what we're doing with Unstoppable Women of Web3 and the Metaverse. If you're a company and you want to join, we don't charge any money. We just ask that you donate education in some form of fashion and sign a pledge that you're going to be focusing on women and diverse groups as well.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. What an amazing thing you're doing. I really appreciate knowing more about that. And thank you for sharing with us today and all this information. It's so, so valuable. Thank you for your time.
You are so welcome, Lisa. And thank you for spearheading it. Making sure that everybody understands in easy little bite-sized hunks is so important. And you did a great job of bringing that out. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, thanks to you. Thank you again for those quick definitions. I'm so grateful. And to all of you out there, we would like to build more of our reporting based on what you'd like to see. So please do share story ideas with us. We're going to put a link in the comments section of this live stream and also on the webpage gatherverse.org/news. You could share some story ideas with us there. On tomorrow's show, Jade Hernandez will be speaking with Dr. Julia Scott, the director of the Brain and Memory Care Lab at Santa Clara University. She'll discuss how Santa Clara University is pushing healthcare forward for dementia caretakers by connecting students and VR technology. If you'd like to sponsor GatherVerse News, you can find information on our website. Thank you again to today's sponsor, How Women Lead, along with their sister organization, How Women Invest. How Women Lead is working to change the landscape for female leaders and investors. Women are done waiting for a seat at the table of power and influence. Through the New Table campaign, How Women Lead is inviting 10,000 female leaders to take their seat, commit to invest in venture capital, support women-founded companies, and disrupt the venture capital landscape. We would also like to thank the lead ambassador for the New Table campaign and the first investor in How Women Lead, and that is Lada Seti. That's it for our show today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you'll be here again tomorrow at the exact same time. That is noon Pacific. Have a great day.